Hi, good morning. Welcome to my video about IBDP, Environmental Systems and Societies, topic 1.4, sustainability. We're going to go over the first significant idea of the topic today, and that is that all systems can be viewed through the lens of sustainability. This graphic right here is a little bit misleading because it shows a linear progression from plants growing and making sugars back to plants growing and making sugars at this end, when in fact, this really should be a circular graphic to reflect the circular economy or the circular ideal of sustainability. Right? When we're talking about sustainability, what we're really into is the idea of natural resources. You probably studied natural resources at some point in primary school, but just to recap very quickly, natural resources are materials and services that people use for one purpose or another. And we generally categorize them as either renewable, because they can be replaced or restocked, or non-renewable because they're finite. And you see some examples of each of those here on the screen. In ESS, we also have, we discuss kind of a middle category that I call replenishable resources. And these are resources that can be replenished as long as they're managed appropriately, but their rate of replacement or restocking is slow enough to make it challenging or difficult for people to actually replace them adequately. It's kind of hidden right here behind my picture, but soils are a classic example of a replenishable resource. We can build up soils through soil management techniques that we'll investigate in topic 5, but more frequently, people use up the nutrients and degrade soils more quickly than we're growing new soils or developing soils in places where they didn't used to exist. Similarly, with potable water, particularly groundwater, we can replenish it, we can replace it, but it's a slow process, and people don't generally do it quickly enough or manage their consumption to be slow enough to allow that replacement. One of the key terms that you've got to take away from topic 1.4 is this idea of natural capital. Right? This is how much we have a storage of a natural resource. Right? So how much fresh water do we have? How many soil nutrients do we have in a particular area? Right? What's the total cubic feet of minerals or wood in a particular area? Right? They are generally things that people value either monetarily, they can put a dollar amount on them, or they value them intrinsically. Natural capital can also come in the form of services that ecosystems provide for us. The clearest example of an ecological service is that all of our trees and plants and algae and cyanobacteria on Earth produce oxygen from photosynthesis. That oxygen production, we can't really put a dollar value on it, because it's a requirement for most forms of life. Right? Carbon sequestration, it's a great service. It's extremely valuable because it helps regulate the greenhouse effect in our atmosphere. These are things that our natural environment does, not only for people, but also for all of the other organisms living in those systems. Natural income, we're going to come up natural capital, right? This is the standing stock. What we have is the storage of either those goods or those services. Natural income is how those goods or services grow or increase. It's like the growth of money in a bank account. It's like the interest on your savings, right? So it's how much the natural capital increases over a fixed period of time, usually 1 year at a time. So the idea with natural capital and natural income is that for something to be sustainable, for a practice to be sustainable, we don't want to diminish the storage, the natural capital, right? As the natural capital grows or increases, right, it's going to produce natural income. That is the growth, the increase over the original amount. Then from that natural income, we can harvest that, and as long as we don't harvest more than what was grown or what was replaced by the natural capital, so that what we started with remains constant, then it's sustainable, right? If we have a woodlot that produces or that grows approximately 1,000 board feet of new timber every year, we can harvest up to 1,000 board feet of timber every year and still maintain our woodlot or our forest. But if we harvest anything more than 1,000 cubic feet a year, maybe even as little as 1,100 board feet, then slowly we're going to chip away at what we started with. And that means that our resource consumption is unsustainable. It's no longer working. Because we're no longer preserving what we started with, right? So here you have a nice little range of items, and some of these are ecological goods and some of these are ecological services, right? So soil formation, photosynthesis, right? Those are examples of ecological services, right? Pollination is a service. Flood control is a service. Purifying water is an ecological service. Storing carbon or carbon sequestration, that's an ecological service. Some of the things that might be ecological goods are, of course, the food, what we can get for both ourselves or for other organisms living in the ecosystem. That is an ecological good. Clean water is a good produced by the service of water purification. Wood is a good, and growing the wood is an ecological service that produces another good, like the habitat. So this might be a 4-mark question that you would encounter on an IB ESS exam. Explain the relationship between natural capital, natural income, and sustainability. So in your response, you need to have all 3 of those underlined words. And because this is explain, you need to tell how they are related and why they are connected. So natural capital is the standing stock or the beginning amount of a natural resource that we have. And as it grows or increases, that growth or that increase is called natural income. And that natural income can either be goods or services. If we use those goods or services at a rate that is less than the growth here, so that the total amount of the natural capital or the standing stock that we had remains constant or increases, that is a sustainable practice. If, however, we extract goods or degrade the services in a way that we consume them at a rate greater than the capital grows or increases, so that we chip away at the amount of natural capital we began with, that's an unsustainable practice, because eventually that amount of natural capital is going to get smaller and smaller until it disappears entirely. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, give it a like, consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you.